This video is brought to you by StewMac.
Previously on TheGuitarGeek.
Let me know in the comments section if you would like to see more, giving it a little bit of TLC. So after that reception, unsurprisingly, I'm back with a part 2 on this budget guitar. Here it is, and it's unchanged from how you saw it in part 1. And so in this video, I'm going to be doing all the things that I said I should do if I wanted to make this a truly perfect playable guitar. And playable is the key word here, because the temptation to over-mod this and put everything new in there, just leaving me with the original body and neck, is huge. And I think that would be a massive mistake. Because my major takeaway from making that first video is that I love the character of this guitar. That bridge pickup sounds like nothing else that I own. That is the sound that I want from this guitar. I'll show you. So a lot of you pointed out that the sound samples in the first video sounded like the 𝗚𝗨𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 from the Animals, and you're absolutely right. It does have that 60s, not lo-fi, but low budget, everything they had import guitars. And to compare that to my actual Fender tribute to the 60s, so this is the American Vintage Reissue 2, and for the price of one of these, you could buy over 20 of the Vision guitars. This is what this sounds like on the bridge. And while I love that sound, I think the Vision guitar nails that 60s low-budget sound even more than the Fender does, which is really weird. I think it's something to do with maybe the mixing of that Animals song that's stuck in my head. But let's get back to the Vision. So I'm going to do the bare minimum on this to get it to a playable guitar that I would take on stage. And the main issue with this guitar was that it doesn't stay in tune very well. And it could be the tuners, it could be the nut, it could be the trem system, but it is most definitely the strings. So the first thing I'm going to do with this guitar is only change the strings and see how that affects the tuning stability. So here's the strings that are going on, the Daddario XT 9-42s. These are quality strings that I use all the time, and I guarantee this is going to bring this guitar up to scratch in terms of strings. Let's tune it up. All right, now I can tell you that the frets are scratchy. Don't forget, €75 including shipping. Frets are scratchy, but the setup is still great, and that trem is exactly where it was before. Right, let's put it to the amp and hear what that sounds like. Okay, as a playing experience, it now feels more solid, and I couldn't even bend. Without it going out of tune. And that's a great improvement already. I'm happy the theory is proven. Just by putting some new quality strings on this guitar, I've taken it from being surprisingly good out of the box to definitely a stage-worthy guitar. And just to really test it, let's do something silly. Does your guitar do that? And if it does, did it cost you €75 plus a new pack of strings? Amazing. But I would be an absolute fool to leave it there, because I have noticed that there are some scratchy frets. It doesn't feel amazing. I desperately want to hydrate this fretboard because it looks so dry. I'm going to change the tuners as well. Not that they need it, but the tuning experience doesn't feel like I want it to feel. Trem system's going to stay the same, but I am going to adjust the tension at the back. It's a little bit too tight, so I will show you how to do that. And I'm going to do that with the help of the sponsors of this video, StewMac. StewMac are here to help you make your guitars better, and in this video, they're going to help me make this guitar better. The first tool I'm using is a notched straight edge that helps me set the neck straight so I can level the frets. I'll take some of their 320 grit self-adhesive sanding paper and stick that to my leveling beam. Then before I do any sanding, I'm going to tape up those pickups and move the pickguard out of the way so they don't get any metal filings into the pickups. Now before I level the frets, I just want to see which ones are high, and I'm using this StewMac fret rocker, which you can move all the way up the neck, but it turns out pretty much every fret was uneven. So I marked them off with a permanent marker, and I definitely should have been using some kind of fret guard. And now just a couple of passes with that leveling beam. Then mark them off again. And it was at this point that I decided to take the neck off, and I probably should have done that at the start. I'm also changing out those tuners, so I may as well do it now. Time to tape up the fretboard, which I probably should have done at the beginning. And that tape dispenser is actually my favorite tool from StewMac. It saves so much time. Then it's time to crown the frets using the StewMac Z file. I like to use the original one. Then I like to round off the edges using the fret end dressing file. And now it's time to get polishing. So these are the StewMac fret erasers, all the way up to 8000 grit, giving you a nice polished finish. No more scratchy frets. Then it's time to fix the new tuners, which required a little bit of drilling. These are locking tuners, so even though we didn't really have any problems with tuning stability, this should help even more. Now to get rid of that permanent marker that I accidentally got on the fretboard, you just pour on a little bit of naphtha or lighter fluid and then wipe it off with a cloth. Do that all the way up the neck and it's all gone. Time for some fretboard conditioning with the color tone lemon oil. And after buffing that off, we've got a lovely hydrated fretboard and super shiny frets. So time to put the neck back on, and the pickguard, and the knobs, and polish it up a little bit. Right, the strings are back on, and we're in the final stages of putting this guitar in its best condition. It's in tune. It's not intonated, the action's not set, it's still a little bit rattly, but the first thing I want to do is attend to this trem bar. Amazingly, it stays in tune if you dive bomb, or close enough, but that tension on there is far too high for my liking, so I want to take a look at the springs on the back. Now I like my trems to be floating, which means that this bridge should not be resting on the body of the guitar and should be about there. So let's do that. I'm just going to dive bomb that trem arm to get this bridge to lift, and then put some paper underneath it to make that level. I can't believe I've just floated a trem system on a €75 guitar. It's not really in tune yet because of the intonation and the truss rod needs adjusting, but we're so close to having this as a really good guitar. There are guitars that I've played that cost 800, 1,000 euros, and you can't float the trem on them. This thing is truly a wondrous miracle. Actually, to give it a bit more of a chance, I'm going to put some lube in the nut slots. Now we're talking. Right, let's do the truss rod. I'm now going to check the radius of the saddles. By sliding this radius gauge in here. It's spot on. I can't believe that it's come from the factory line. Oh, the top E could go down a little bit. So whatever MSA are doing in Germany when they receive these guitars, they are doing an amazing job and above what they should be doing. Right, intonation. I am very happy with this guitar, and I should probably recap what I've done to it and what I could have done to it. So, first thing I did was change the strings. That was definitely the biggest upgrade. And quite honestly, probably the only upgrade this needed. So if you buy a €75 guitar that seems to be pretty good, put some decent strings on it, and that will be the most you will probably need to do to it. I did a few other things. I did a fret job and then polished the frets. I probably could have got away with just polishing them because they were quite scratchy. Now they are smooth as butter and it is a joy to play. Setup wise, I have floated the trem and adjusted the trem system. And it is extremely rare to have a guitar at this price point that you can float a trem on. In fact, I normally don't recommend trems on guitars under about 150 euros because usually they're problematic. What else did I do? I lubed up the nut, which is necessary. It didn't seem to be necessary before I messed with the trem, but now that everything is sort of floating, it needed a little bit of assistance. And of course, in floating the trem, I removed one of the springs. And the one thing I didn't want to do was to change the tonal characteristics of this guitar, because it sounds like nothing else I own. And I think a lot of that is coming down to these cheap pickups. So some of you are probably screaming at the screen saying, oh, you should have changed the pickups. That would definitely bring the guitar up to a 300 euro guitar. Yeah, it may bring it up slightly higher, but that's what I like. I like this garagey, bridgy, thrashy 60s sound, and I'm definitely keeping this guitar in my arsenal for recording thrashy garage sounds. In fact, let's try something now. So now this is to the Boss Katana on a crunchy setting. Now, honestly tell me, do the pickups need changing in this? No. And I put it through the Fender Deluxe Reverb and you get this beautiful, beautiful clean sound. So yes, if you want a different sound from this guitar, by all means change the pickups, upgrade them. But if you just want a good playing guitar, change the strings and you have an absolute bargain on your hands. But if you really want to push this to the next level and not spend a lot of money, get yourself some of those StewMac fret erasers and polish those frets. That makes this guitar such a pleasure to play, and it's really easy to do. And quite frankly, I kind of regret changing the tuners. It didn't really need it, and if you buy one of these guitars, you don't need to do it. And as for the trem adjustments, that's a personal preference, and I just wanted to see how far I could push this guitar. I don't regret doing that, but it's not necessary. String change, fret polish, you are done. And that is me finished with this guitar from Amazon. But don't worry, I got another one. And this one's a little bit more expensive, but still firmly in the budget category. So we'll have fun with that in another video in the future. There's a link to this guitar in the video description. There are also links to all the tools I used from StewMac down there in the video description. And there's a subscribe button just there that you can click so you don't miss any of my future videos, including any further Amazon shenanigans. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!